Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins in 1945 with World War II veterans returning home to their anxious families. The soldier Frank Harris reunites with his teary-eyed mother Agatha before going to their quaint little home in the Las Vegas desert. Changing into a snazzy gray suit first, Frank shows off his new motorbike that he won during a card game, and despite her fake enthusiasm he convinces his mother to go for a ride. We cut to a drunk couple driving home in the opposite direction on the same road, so you know that nothing good is going to come of it. Frank and his mother get struck by the car and thrown onto the dirt, where Frank has war flashbacks before realizing that his mother's lying beside him dead. When an ambulance takes her body away, we're shown a cartoon doctor named Whiskers who created a spike capable of interdimensional travel to the real world. It inadvertently transports Frank into the animated world where the doctor introduces themselves as doodles, but Frank just calls them cartoons. He thinks that he's hallucinating after the crash, but Whiskers assures him that they're all very real, and Frank remains trapped there for the next 47 years. Nearly half a century later, we join the cartoonist Jack the night before his release from prison after murdering the man that he found in bed with his wife. He's the creator of the highly acclaimed comic book series Cool World, which features the femme fatale Holli Wood. She brings Jack into the animated world, where he lands in the shady part of Cool World and looks up to see Holli dancing in the local club in front of dozens of horny bystanders. Jack reaches out to the doodle as she approaches, but suddenly gets sent back to the real world and wakes up in his cell thinking that it was just another dream. Back inside Cool World, Frank arrives at Holli's apartment as he's now a detective and investigating the visit from the human witch Toons Colnoids. She claims that it was only a mistake, but Holli wants to enter the real world so badly that she wears a drawing of the dress that Marilyn Monroe wore. Frank won't allow crossovers, so Holli goes on a rant about how doodles are unable to feel anything, including touch, taste, or what she wants the most, which is sex. Telling her to keep her legs closed, Frank leaves to continue policing Cool World, while Holli does the opposite and plans to find another way to cross dimensions. We're shown some colorful characters like a doodle gangster named Sparks who visits the dancer on a regular and brandishes carnivorous wooden nickels. After he's released from prison, Jack rejoins society and everything's going great when he's recognized in a bookstore and autographs copies of Cool World for his fanbase. It quickly turns sour the moment that somebody asks Jack about the murder, so he returns to his new house opposite the friendly neighbor Isabelle. That night, Jack's transported to Cool World again, where the baby ape gangster uses retractable claws to hustle a sweet bunny, rolling craps out of its savings. Jack's arrival allows it to escape from Holli's distracted thugs who call themselves the partners in crime and go by the name Mash, Bash and Bob. Holli's summoned him once again to reveal that she's been doing this for years and misleading Jack into believing that he created Cool World from his imagination. The doodles are actually an ink-based species living in an alternate dimension, but before Holli can say any more, the scorned bunny reaches the police station. It demands with a menacing voice that the poppers rip the goons' faces off for cheating, so they all pile into the patrol car and run the criminals out of town. Holli speeds back to the club with Jack, who isn't taking the situation seriously for obvious reasons, and who uses his piss to distract the poppers. Unable to see, they collide with a passing train, shattering the police into pieces and leaving the bunny crap out of luck while the partners in crime escape. Elsewhere, Frank's about to go on a date with his doodle girlfriend Lonette when his crime-solving spider-like partner Nails tells him about the Noid's arrival. He gets back to the club with Holli, where the bouncer literally bounces until being knocked out of the way by Mash for trying to prevent their entry. Jack is immediately detained on arrival by Frank, who warns humans they aren't allowed to have sex with doodles, which he'd know a lot about. He reiterates that Cool World existed long before Jack did and warns the artist that his fountain pen's a dangerous weapon in this dimension. Jack's returned home, violently crashing into his studio, while Frank meets up with Lonnie to argue about why they can't sleep together. She says they can at least pretend, but then almost breaks the law when Nails walks in, ruining the moment but potentially saving the universe. The detectives drive over to Holli's apartment, where they need to scale the ridiculously large building to break inside, since she won't let them in the front door. She's always dancing with a crowd around her, and Frank gives a stern warning not to associate with the Noid again or he'll close her whole business down. He goes to leave, but Holli gives him a piece of her mind that Frank's a coward for not returning to the human world to face his mom's death. That night, she teleports Jack to Cool World again, where he's collected by the partners in crime and brought to her apartment. Only he's allowed inside, which disappoints the goons, so they build a tower up the side of the building with junk because Holli promised that they could watch. She brings Jack to the bedroom, where he says that the detective warned him they can't go any further than this, but she doesn't listen. The doodle and unresisting human copulate while the peeping apes are knocked from their tower by the finish, but at least they seem to have gotten their kicks. Because of the union, Holli transforms into a real human just like she always wanted and is able to feel a dress on her skin for the first time. She begins planning to escape from Cool World and steals Jack's fountain pen before going outside to walk around and be told by her goons that she looks horrible. Meanwhile, Frank temporarily leaves detective duties to Nails while going to Lonette's work and attempting to mend his relationship with her. The Spider receives a call from the police informant Sparks, who tells him about the coupling and Holli attempting to reach the real world. A tortured little phone who hears ringing in its ears delivers the message to Frank, but Nails decides that he can do this on his own. He goes off to stop the rogue doodle outside her apartment, but she uses the pen to suck Nails in and returns with him and Jack to the real world. She makes a much more graceful entrance than Jack seems to and meets her first people on Earth when Isabelle and her daughter come to check on the commotion. By the way Holli's dressed, the two think they were probably just fooling around and leave them wondering where they recognize the woman from. Jack takes his new date to a nearby club where Holli sings on stage with Frank Sinatra Jr. and Jack gets thrown out for no reason. For another unexplained reason they begin flickering between their annoyed self and cartoon clowns, so Holli leaves while the audience just thinks it's part of the show. Confused as much as anyone about what's going on, they begin driving around trying not to crash while arguing about their doodle problem. Holli thinks the spike of powers on Earth and can save them, but Jack calls her crazy, so she kicks him in the face a few times and hijacks his car. Meanwhile in Cool World, Frank discovers his partner's missing and learns from Sparks that Holli did it before entering the real world. He argues with Lonnie about leaving to stop them, as she doesn't think that he will return to her if he ever goes back to Earth. Promising that Cool World's his home now, Frank departs for the real world with a series of painful flashbacks of his crash 50 years ago. Appearing inside Jack's house with the same injuries from that fateful day, the owner arrives after walking home and basically acknowledges that he screwed up. He's willing to take Frank to retrieve her, so they use the neighbor's car who just came over again for another checkup after Frank's materializing shook the house. The detective knows that Holli would go to the Hotel of Vegas Vinny, which is a character Doc Whiskers created during his time on Earth and must be the location of the spike. When he first left Cool World, the Doc mapped out a passage to Earth but dedicated himself to protecting it like Frank, as a disruption could destroy the universe. Holli starts asking random people around the hotel if they know where Vegas Vinny is, but gets tossed out for not having any money. She begins flickering again when a little disguised person walks up to tell her that she won't find what she's looking for around here. He then tries to run away but trips over himself, and Holli reveals his identity by shaking Doc Whiskers out of his long coat. He says that the spike's on top of the tower, but it won't help Holli, so she uses the pen to pop Doc like a balloon just as the fuzz arrive. Frank tells Jack and Isabelle to put Whiskers back together while he chases the doodle up several flights of stairs and onto a floor. She begins flickering into a tune again and uses it to jump through a wall into an apartment, but Frank feels the suspicious area as he passes. Holli kicks him in the groin, and when cornered with nowhere else to go, she tries leap through the wall again but flickers into annoyed and knocks herself out. She then gets back up and climbs onto the skyrise balcony where she pretends to get stuck, and Frank needs to risk his life to save her. It's all part of her plan as Holli pushes him from the railing and Frank plummets to his death, allowing the doodle to continue climbing onto the roof. Downstairs, Whiskers tells Jack that it's his chance to become a superhero, so he uses his new toon abilities to stretch his arms up multiple floors. He pulls himself up as Holli begins getting electrocuted by loose cables and flickers between her original doodle self. She makes it to the top and pulls the spike from the building sign, which releases all of the animations from the Cool World graveyard into the real world. Jack reaches her and turns into a superhero version of himself, but Holli kicks him in the balls before escaping on the back of some doodles. SuperJack retrieves the dropped spike while the drawings fly about town, turning all the humans into toon counterparts and causing general chaos. When he attempts to plug the hole to Cool World, Jack must battle the aggressive doodles, who he rips apart easily while flexing his heroically buff appearance. Holli comes for the spike and tells Jack that they'll be staying in the real world, but he resists her powers of seduction and returns the spike of power to its proper place. All of the humans revert to normal while the doodles, along with Holli and SuperJack, are sucked back into Cool World and trapped inside. Once it's plugged, the dropped fountain pen breaks and Nails manages to escape, only to find his partner laying dead on the pavement. He begins to cry while Isabelle does the same for Jack, but Whiskers tells her that he's probably alive and just living inside Cool World. Nails figures that he should bring Frank's corpse home to his girlfriend and leaves the real world with Whiskers while the neighbor just wanders off. Lonette arrives home after work to find Frank laying on the pavement outside of her apartment, where Nails divulges the whole story. He mentions that Holli's the one who killed him, but conveniently any human killed by a cartoon becomes a doodle themselves. Since she flickered into the clown just before she pushed him, Frank suddenly resurrects as a Tintin-headed animation, overjoyed to be alive. Lonnie's especially happy that they can now sleep together, and after first throwing out an intruding Nails, they turn off the lights. The final scene shows SuperJack planning to remain forever in Cool World while Holli sulks alone over her failure to escape. And the movie ends.